Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I am going to be talking about Saturn at 29 degrees in astrology. Now, 29 degrees in astrology, otherwise known as the anaretic degree. This could be, it's a critical degree. This could be a degree, as far as Saturn at 29 degrees, in natal chart, the person may be inundated with responsibilities and work. There may be a strong overemphasis on success, ambitions, career matters. There could be very distorted and intensified focus on one's limitations and restrictions. The person may simply be bombarded with them and making it, and it could be very difficult to overcome. The person also that has this degree at Saturn may be dominated by their career, by working laboriously. There may be issues that need to be reconciled with the father or an authority figure, perhaps. It could also be there might be a very strong amplified interest in far as energy and structure and discipline in one's life. Now, also, since Saturn could be connected with fears, this could be somebody that might have very intensified trepidation and fear, even worry in connection with the sign that Saturn is in and the house that it is in. Now, this could also be a person that might be exceptionally despondent and melancholy, overly pessimistic and negative. Now, also, given a 29 degrees in astrology could be crisis and upheaval ridden. This could be somebody that may have perpetual issues with the father, authority figures, responsibilities. And also, Saturn is connected with hermits as well. And this person may be strongly enamored with solitude, seclusion, isolation. It could be that backwoodsman syndrome, so to speak, or somebody that is overly infatuated with being by themselves and isolating themselves from others. It's interesting. I don't have Saturn at 29 degrees. But I have it in the 12th house conjunct my ascendant. I've even had at least one person call me a hermit one time. I'm really very, everything maybe but reclusive. I'm very introverted. I don't go out a whole lot. And I think but I could only, and it conjuncts my ascendant. I could only imagine if I had this at 29 degrees in the 12th house conjunct my ascendant, how this might actually impact me. That could even be more intensified need for that solitude and that seclusion. A lot of it depends on, too, as far as other factors in the chart that reaffirm this. If you say have a very introverted chart, you have a preponderance of planets below the horizon and or a lot of astrological energy in feminine signs, a strong 12th house, things like that. And let's say, if Saturn is afflicted, let's say if it makes an adverse aspect to Venus, which of course is connected with relationships, it could be something where, it could really give strong, I think, hermit tendencies in some cases. Now, but anyway, what I want to talk about, too, is as far as going back to this 29th degree as far as Saturn goes in astrology, this could be somebody that might have difficulties with Saturn-related things, such as something with the knees, the bones, or the skin even. Also, this person may be exceptionally ambitious, and in some cases, as I've stated before, it could be a very distorted, amplified, depressed, despondent nature. In some cases, and in isolated cases, it could be somebody that might succumb to some kind of depression if there's other factors in the astrological chart that may reaffirm and reinforce this. Now, say, for example, if you have, let's say this is in, say if it's in the 12th house, for example, and makes an adverse aspect to Mercury or even the 3rd house cusp, things like that as examples. Now, on a positive note, somebody that has Saturn at 29 degrees could be somebody that might have an excessive, exorbitant need to work within the parameters and regulations. It could be a very law-abiding, scrupulous person. Now, And it could also be somebody that may be exceptionally consistent. Now, unfortunately, the person may also be just very traditionalist, orthodox, and conventional, and maybe have an aversion to going outside the box, so to speak. It could be somebody that also might have an anathema to innovation and ingenuity, and somebody that just might have an overly serious nature as well. Now, the thing about this is this could also go, in some cases I think this could go either way. If you have Saturn at 29 degrees, you could have a little vacillation and distortion of energy, because what could happen is a person might become tired of being overly rigid or intransigent or what have you, overly orthodox and conventional in matters, and being so averse to innovation. They could be so away from that for so long and being such a traditionalist or what have you, that at some point they decide to go outside the box and really focus more on new ideas, new concepts, new technology, or what have you, and have a stronger need for abstract thinking and going outside the box, so to speak. Now, also too, I mean, this could, and it could also be a person that might have very strong difficulty showing that whimsical or capricious side. The sign that it is in could impact the delineation as well. Let's say somebody has Saturn at 29 degrees Taurus. This could be a person that's inundated perhaps with monetary responsibilities. It could be somebody that might experience a lot of limitations monetarily, or might even have difficulty with the throat, neck area, or vocal cords as well. But it might be somebody that might deal with a multitude of things that require a lot of patience and perseverance and persistence, and maybe even an exceptionally obstinate father in some cases. Though it's interesting, Tupac Shakur, legendary rapper, has Saturn at 29 degrees, had Saturn at 29 degrees Taurus. Now, in his solar sunrise chart, falls in the 12th house. I don't know his time of birth, so this is based on a solar sunrise chart. Now, with him, I thought it was interesting, based on at least what I research on the internet, it seems like there was some difficulties with the father, like maybe he had maybe there was some limitations and restrictions with it. Having somebody has Saturn 29 degrees Taurus in the 12th house, like in his case, it seems like, I mean, there could be, I mean, issues with the father that may have needed to be reconciled, and the fact that it falls in his 12th house, that could even emphasize limitations and restrictions in connection with the father person. It might be a father that may have dissipated out of the person's life, or had a or the person had a limited connection with that person. I have Saturn in the 12th house in my natal chart, and in my case, my father had passed away when I was 3 years old. I don't have Saturn at 29 degrees, but I could only imagine how more difficult it could have been for me if I did have Saturn at 29 degrees as opposed to having it at 19 degrees in my natal chart in the 12th house. So anyway, this also can be something where, and again, I mean, also the house that this is in is important as well, and as I explain that through that example. But again, let's take somebody that has, as another example, like Tupac Shakur had in his solar sunrise chart, Saturn in Taurus, 29 degrees in the 12th house. This could be, look at it maybe a little bit differently. This could be a person that may work very laboriously, with a lot of persistence and effort, and also with a lot of concentration in seclusion and solitude, and also somebody that may be inundated with responsibilities. Now, it could also be, and going back to, I want to rewind a second. I want to go back to Tupac Shakur. Keep in mind, too, that Saturn, with him, Saturn at 29 degrees Taurus in that 12th house in the solar/sunrise chart, another way that could have manifested with him is that he putting a lot of emphasis, perhaps, on career-related matters, working laboriously in something like with Taurus, with the arts, singing, and also in the 12th house. The 12th house could be connected with poetry, and he was a rapper, so you do get the idea. And with him, it seemed like there was a lot of distorted, amplified energy in connection with that. So anyway, Hold on a second, people. Sorry about that. Anyway, going back to Saturn at 29 degrees in astrology. Now, and again, now the aspects that this makes to other points in one's natal chart can be as important as well, as this could impact the delineation and interpretation. Now, let's say, for example, if it makes predominantly positive aspects to other points in one's natal chart, the positive energy of this degree may be more accentuated and emphasized. The person may be extremely responsible, disciplined, structured, be able to reconcile or resolve issues with the father if there are any. It could be somebody that is very ambitious and career-oriented, and also, too, somebody that could be able to handle an inordinate amount of responsibilities and do it easier. Now, let's say that it makes mainly adverse aspects to points in your astrological chart. Now, this could be a person that might be overly pessimistic, negative, melancholy, even despondent and dejected, a person that constantly sees the glass as half empty as opposed to half full, so to speak. And there might be even increased amplified issues with the father and authority figures and older people. Now, let's take some specific aspects as examples. Now, let's say somebody has Saturn at 29 degrees making a conjunction to their ascendant. Now, this could be a person that might be inundated with physical restrictions, often connected with that zodiac sign. Let's say, for example, if it was in Aquarius, it could be something connected perhaps with the ankles, the shins, or circulation. Now, let's say, it could also, on a positive note, it could be a person that might be seen as exceptionally consistent on a first impression, perhaps with Aquarius-like things such as showing humanitarianism, consideration, and selflessness, but also perhaps very consistent, non-conforming energy. Now, let's take another example. Let's say that somebody has Saturn at 29 degrees in their chart, making an adverse aspect to their Mars. Now, this could be a person that might be bombarded with responsibilities, which may cause much exasperation and acrimony and agitation, and also it might conflict with one's sexual life. Now, let's go as far as predictive astrology goes. Sometimes this may signify the end of a responsibility or some kind of limitation or restriction. It could be a career-related matter, may come to a culmination or a conclusion, perhaps. And something that, say, you look at this, it could be something, too, that required a laborious effort, may end. Now, let's take an example. Let's say that transit Saturn is at 29 degrees Scorpio in one's first house in their chart. Now, this could be the ending perhaps of a physical transformation that required much industry or hard work, or the end of a Scorpio-like physical limitation. It could be something with the bladder or pelvic area region. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Saturn at 29 degrees in astrology. And stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be giving you a special video. It's basically a tribute to my fans out there, because I'll be celebrating the 6-year anniversary of my YouTube astrology channel. So it'll mark that 6-year anniversary. I'm going to make a video about that. Anyway, people, 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.